It's Josh, your Goth Fragrance Bestie. I believe perfume is a language that speaks to us, not in words and colors, but in emotions and memories. In Goth Fragrance Dialogues, we will be listening to the people who channel and craft that language for us. In this episode of Goth Fragrance Dialogues, I traveled to Nashville, where we'll be hearing from Kyle at OSM Perfumes. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kyle.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out here and chatting with me.
Before we get into the questions themselves, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name's Kyle Mott-Kannenberg. I'm an independent perfumer who is currently in Nashville, previously Los Angeles for about 20 years. I came to perfumery kind of a long way around. I have a degree, my undergrad degree is in chemistry. And then I had a career in film and television for about 20 years in LA. And then I was getting ready to have our first child and was doing candles on the side, like just for fun as a hobby, and was never satisfied or liked the stuff that you could buy off the shelf from different online retailers. And I thought to myself, well, there's gotta be somewhere that I can either hire someone to do this or I could learn how to do this. And I found that in Los Angeles at a perfumery lab, studied with them. They had some professional level courses, studied with them for a while, and then started working in their lab a little bit. And then I kind of jumped into developing fragrance and came out with a first line, which was an art project, essentially.
All right.
And then got a little bit of notice from some retailers and from the Art and Olfaction Awards. And I thought, oh, there's something probably to this. I should probably develop this into a brand. And that's what I did. And then we put it out there and we just let it happen organically. We didn't pump any marketing money into it, mostly because from the recognition from Art and Olfaction, I started to receive clients who were interested in me developing fragrance for them. And after a number of them, I thought, oh, this is the business. This is how I can sustain having a brand.
Gotcha. Okay. We'll come back to a few of those points. Looking back, even before that kind of art project of perfumery, what is your first memory tied to scent?
I know, I knew this question was coming, and my answer's not great, because everybody always has an answer of like, oh, I remember being this age and just running in the woods and picking flowers and making potions, and I was like, that's not me. I remember Drakkar Noir.
Okay, yeah.
In the late 80s. And that was my kind of like introduction to perfume and smelling things and noticing that like, oh, you can put things on your body that are gonna be interesting and people might look at you differently. And it was that and Obsession by Calvin Klein that were the mainstays in those days. And then quite frankly, after that, when I was in film and television, not really interested in fragrance, not, aside from just having a few on my shelf that were kind of the popular ones. It wasn't until I came back around to learning perfumery, I realized that making perfume tickled the parts of my brain that bring me joy, which was formulating and maths, solving a problem and telling a story. So part of my brain got to tell the story through fragrance and then also develop packaging and bottling and labels and stuff like that. Satisfied my creative visual side.
So I think that's a great lead-in. How did you go from film and television into candles and perfume?
So the candle was a way to stay sane when in film and TV. I don't know if you know anybody who's in film and TV or know about that industry, but it's a tough industry. with very long hours. Not to say that everybody else doesn't have long hours that are working out there, but it tends to be a little bit abusive. And there's some good people trying to change that now. But I had just had enough of it after a certain amount of time, and I thought, oh, if I'm going to raise a kid, I need to not be in this environment. And so that's how I got into perfumery.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of an escape, and then you realized very quickly, as you mentioned, how it could become its own business.
Yeah, so I was a stay-at-home dad for the first 3 years of our son's life. And in that time, that's where I had the opportunity to like develop things and think about it. It was also the time when people started to approach, later on in those 3 years. It wasn't until maybe like about the fifth year I was in perfumery is when I really felt like, oh, I can actually do something for somebody and not be an imposter, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's not a quick thing to learn.
Right.
Perfumery. It's not incredibly difficult or like not. I think lots of people can do it. I just think it takes a long time.
Right. Do you think you mentioned like feeling like an imposter, that imposter syndrome, was it more related to not being kind of classically trained, or was it more the kind of normal, I haven't been validated that I'm good at this yet?
No, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it. I don't think it was I haven't been validated. That one has never really affected me in my life. I don't really care too much what people think. But I think maybe the classically trained part of it was, until I came to the realization that it was like, oh, well, this has been gatekept for so many years that this education is not available to everybody. Until the last 15 years when the walls have started to come down and people have been sharing information. Mm-hmm. That was probably it. And then once I realized that I've read enough, I've done enough experiments, I've done enough time at the bench that I'm good.
Yeah.
But I also think even to this day, if something comes up that's challenging, I think, oh gosh, I feel like I don't know how to do that. But it's just another problem waiting for a solution. That's what happens in my head.
Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned some of the things you really enjoy about perfumery are kind of the hard skills, the math, the chemistry, but also the telling of stories and the emotiveness. Mm-hmm. What's the significance, in your opinion, of emotionality with perfume?
Well, I mean, it's such a direct line to our brain and feeling and our sense of emotions. I would just say this really quickly about this, is that the thing that I don't like about perfumery and hearing people talk about perfumery, but it's also something that we have to do, is talk about notes. I am, absolutely tired of talking about notes or hearing people talk about notes. It's not interesting. It's stuff that you can read on a label. I love content creators or people that I meet in my everyday life who talk about fragrance and how it affects them and the things that they feel or visualize while they're wearing something or when they smell something. That, I think, is the most interesting part of this job. It's not it has notes of cherry and saffron.
That's a trap that I think is easy to fall into when discussing perfumes, but I get what you mean. When something really makes an emotional connection, you have a memory, you have an image or a vibe that goes along with it.
Yeah.
And that's always much more compelling.
Absolutely. But I understand why it's there and why we need to have it, and why I also put notes on my bottles, on my packaging, is because it's just been for so long, thanks to Michael Edwards, mostly, that we have been using it as a tool for marketing and for people in retail to discuss with a potential client, what this perfume might smell like to them.
Right. Looking at your brand, kind of what role do your personal memories and stories play in the creation of scent?
Oh, great question. So the project started based on memories of mine and my ex-husband, and the first 4 fragrances were based on 4 memories that we had. One was our wedding, which is Foreverness, the green bottle that we have. Another one was a trip to traveling cross country with my best friend in my late 20s in my Saturn return. Her name is Zenzi, not Zuzel. That's just an inside joke that our friends have. I'm losing the thread of what the question was.
Yeah. So what role do your personal memories and stories play?
So a very direct role. Because that was our leaping off point. And we called our brand Olfactory Sense Memory and realized it was a mouthful. And it's like, this is not a great name. We shortened it to OSM, just so it just looked better on the label. It was easy to say. We wanted it to look more, we wanted just the shape of the kind of the logo to be the thing that you recognize.
Okay, yeah, because your logo itself is like almost a shadow of,
yes.
There's not the cutouts or, very cool.
Yeah, and before the one that you see now, we had an iteration of branding in bottles. That was our first one I did. And when I shifted it over to just calling it OSM and just, that's when the branding shifted. So the logo changed, the name OSM became Our Scent Memories, because now we're not focusing on just the memories of this queer couple. We wanted to focus on memories of minority and marginalized communities. So at that point, I sought out other partners to create fragrance with. For example, Jinx Monsoon. And that's where Hera came from. I was interested, we were watching Drag Race. And I think it was maybe the second time Jinx was on. And I turned to my husband at the time and I said, oh, I want to create a perfume for Jinx. So I think we should make that happen. And it happened. We just got in touch with her management company, got her on the phone, on a call, and we hit it off. And that's how that started.
Very cool. Just sent the message.
Just sent the message.
Yeah.
We've been sending lots of little messages out to different people in the community to try to figure out how to make new fragrances. So we have some coming up.
Yeah, I mean, Hera, I think, got a lot of publicity because just after that season of Drag Race, Jinx is everywhere. She's a powerhouse. But that fragrance also, I think, is so universally understood as like an expression of her. How did you distill that in conversation into a perfume?
She was a really great client to work with. We had few conversations, actually. I think also having been a fan of hers for so long, I had an idea of what she was like. And then when I got to talk with her, she told me what she wanted it to be like. She didn't actually direct it in any way to say like, I want this note, that note, and that note. She had a couple notes in mind that she wanted it to smell like, and she had some things she didn't want it to smell like, which was great. And anytime someone can say, I don't want it to be this, it kind of puts me in the right place. But she wanted it to be empowering. She wanted to have a little bit of a witchy vibe. There was mention of cherry. That was really the only note that she did, if I can remember correctly. It was mostly just getting a vibe from each other. And I feel like she felt she could trust me, and I felt like I could trust her. And that to me is the perfect client, because we're gonna get to an end product pretty quickly. If we're not either on the same page or if we don't trust in the other person, we're just gonna kind of fumble our way through it. Yeah, she's great to work with. In fact, she wants to do a couple extras, so we're talking about it.
Yeah, I think, skips forward, but when talking about, having the perfect client, how do you generally approach that like consulting aspect? Do you have a discovery question the same way as like, what's your first memory to send? Or is it just
it's a
vibe?
It's a vibe. It's a feel check. It's like Sometimes I can tell from the email that this isn't going to be a match because they go to my website, Blend by OSM, also Blend Artisanal Fragrances, and that's kind of a funnel for questions. And they'll say like, I want to do a candle line, or I want to do this type of thing. And I always say, great, let's schedule a call so I can learn more. Excuse me, so I can learn more about your project. When we get on a call and I can get more information from them, I can figure out if we're a match, if we're a fit. And if we're not a match, totally fine. I give them resources and point them in the direction of somebody that can help them, or a company that can help them. Get a lot of calls about candles. And I do some work on candles, but the type of candles that I am qualified or I feel like I want to create are not candles that are gonna be $20 or $30. Right. So that price point, I need to point them in a different direction because we're not gonna make candles that are using those types of materials, to kind of put it bluntly. Or somebody, and sometimes they're really, so we have had one person who was very pushy and really wanted, he's like, listen, I want to work with you. And I was like, great, that's amazing. I'd love to explore this further. And he kept like trying to hammer down cost. And I said, what are you actually trying to produce? And he's like, well, I want something that makes a lot of money. And I was like, well, we're not a good match because you want something that I can't deliver for you. I can't create this fragrance and maintain my integrity about what I think is good, and if it's going to come out of my lab. But yeah, he was relentless. So it was you get to a point where you're like, I'm sorry that we have to close this, and that's a line. But yeah, it's mostly a vibe check. Like Black Cliff, when he contacted me, that was out of the blue. Mm-hmm. And that was just him looking at a certain website that has a lot of perfumers listed, and he just picked out the name and called me. And he was already down the rabbit hole of creating perfume, and he was working with another company that he wasn't pleased with. And I was like, oh, well, send me the fragrances. And he sent me the fragrances. And I was like, oh, I can see why you're not pleased. Not because they're not good fragrances, but they're not doing what you want them to do. And most of it was like with longevity, which is a whole nother situation. But they weren't lasting long, in his opinion. And I said, okay, well, and they kept promising that if they just add more fragrance compound to the mix, it would last longer. And I was like, well, that's not how this works. And I don't think that this company is the right company for you. And I explained to him what that company does. Mm-hmm. And they take off-the-shelf type things that they have already pre-made, and they get close to what you want. And I was like, for your brand and what you're trying to do and which tier of the market you're trying to enter, this is not a good match.
Yeah, because Black Cliff is very striking. I mean, with the bottles and the scent profiles, like Beautiful Monster is really, really astonishing.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, that was one of our first ones, Beautiful Monster. And like for him, we had a moment of, in the first 5 fragrances, kind of like sniffing each other out, trying to find that level of trust. Blinding Light was the first one we did, and it took quite a long time. Mr. Pink also took a long time to get to the formula. After we got through, I think, those first 5, the next 4 or 5 that we did together went much quicker. He was able to say what he wanted the story to be, what he thought it should be, and he threw out some notes, and I would say, great, thank you, I'm gonna run with this. And I would make something that was in that world. And then he, most of the time, came back and be like, this is what I was thinking. I'm like, great. So we had that trust and that shorthand with each other,
right?
Which is very helpful. Even like when one of my favorites that we did together was Incidental Orris. And he just described the experience of being a kid laying in a grove of bamboo trees, looking up, the sun kind of shining through, and just being by himself. And he's like, that's what I want it to feel like. And I was like, great, let me
That's interesting, because Orris, personally, tends to be pretty difficult for me. I find it very waxy, texture-wise, and that is such an interesting use of Orris. It plays really well with the composition. That's one of the few Orris that I would wear.
Oh, great.
So that's...
And that's kind of our tongue-in-cheek naming of it, too. And we're just like, yeah, well, and there's Orris. And I was like, well, put it in the title. Let's just see what happens. And he did. I'm happy he did. Because it is kind of incidental to the...
Yeah, it's not
whole,
really...
because it's really about being this green, fresh, sun-dappled experience. Oh, and incidentally, there's Orris, too.
Yeah. When looking at kind of everything you've done, what are some of the challenges that you've faced building a brand that emphasizes inclusivity and sustainability in an industry that historically is steeped in some pretty backwards traditions?
Do you want the short answer?
Whatever you want to
I
give.
don't give a shit, but they do. So, I mean, that's probably, you could probably edit that out or not, but I don't care what other people are doing. I've never kind of looked at the industry, this Goliath, being of the fragrance industry, and have ever thought, oh, I can take that on, or oh, I can shift that. It's like, no, I'm just gonna go over here and do my thing. And that's what birthed my business, Blend Artisanal Fragrances, is I saw a hole in the market, and I'm sure other perfumers did too, where people wanted to either start a fragrance line, start a candle line, start a self-care product line that needed fragrant materials in their products. But they couldn't meet minimums of tens of thousands. So as companies approached me or people approached me, I saw this hole in the market and I said, oh, I can make and develop fragrance for you, and we can do it in 200 to 5,000 units. Our sweet spot is like 200 to 1,000 units so that they can test the market, launch, see what works, and then we support them along the way. So I don't care what the big guys are doing.
Right.
I have an eye on the market, but I'm not so focused on it because they don't care about me. I'm not gonna sell this brand to, Estee Lauder. They're not gonna come knocking on my door. That's not a thing that happens anymore, I think. And that's not, and it's not interesting. I want to do this for the rest of my life, and I'm not interested in selling something and then walking away from it.
That leads really well into this next question. So you've mentioned in your podcast with James from Filigree and Shadow, oh my God, we should totally do a podcast.
It's a great podcast.
That you've seen an explosion of private equity and venture capital in the perfume industry. Do you have plans on selling out anytime soon? Or any other commentary?
I do not have plans on selling out anytime soon. I think James is a similar type of person too. James and I are about the same age. We grew up in the 80s, and in punk, alternate, goth, queer world, where we were very much to the establishment. So I'm not going to sell out, but I think there are, and it's interesting because I started watching TikTok during the pandemic, like most everyone else.
Yep.
Because I was like, oh, this is an escape. I get to see people, because I only got to see my immediate family at the time. I got to see people. I got to learn sourdough bread making, which has been fantastic, along with millions of other people. But that was a time we were coming back to
seeing the explosion
of venture capital. Okay, so TikTok really, I think, had all these eyes on it. People saw, oh, look, here's different avenues that we can exploit and make money off of them. And one of them was fragrance and perfume talk. Mm-hmm. And I started to see all these, a couple of things happened. You saw people making perfumes in their house, which I thought was fantastic and exciting and interesting. Then they started to sell those things, which I thought, oh, that's exciting and interesting. Could be a little bit scary too. Be careful. And then I saw these brands that would come out and just flood the market. You would see them everywhere all at once, and they would just like, you know, just spray the market, you know, give everybody discovery sets or bottles to just see what sticks and who's going to talk about it. There are very few small brands who have the money to do that.
Right.
So you can easily find, oh look, this is everywhere. They've got deep pockets. They've got some capital. It maybe is their own, but probably not. It's probably some type of VC type situation or an investor, an outside investor.
Right.
And anytime you have an outside investor, you are responsible for making a good profit. And that kind of thing is antithesis to my thinking of capitalism and, I should say commerce, because that's not capitalism. Commerce is delivering a product that I believe in, that I think is good, and making enough money so I can sustain myself on this earth.
Right.
That's okay. But when you're making products that I can smell and I go, yeah, that is some basic stuff. And it is dirt cheap to make, and you're charging this amount of money. This is a money grab.
Yeah, we were talking before we started filming about, you know, some of the brands that seemingly come out of nowhere are exclusive to certain retail stores. They have 12 in their launch collection. That's like, that's not something someone's doing in their house. That's not something, yeah.
There's also this voracious appetite for fragrance right now. And I think it's like there's this voracious appetite because people want new. Mm-hmm. They want to know what's next. And also creators who make content, or they need a feed of constant new stuff. To turn out a fragrance in 3 to 6 months and bring it to market is absolutely bananas. It just doesn't happen that fast. Well, I mean, it does happen that fast, but you're not gonna get the best type product. You're gonna get like, it's 70% there, you know, but it's not like 90 to 100% there. That takes a little bit longer.
For the people that have emails ready to go to you now, how long should they expect a turnaround on a fragrance to be?
I tell everybody when we first talk, I say, this is gonna be about a year for us to get a product together. And the fragrance will be the easiest part of this, actually. It will still take a long time, but the thing that's gonna be the most difficult for you if you're starting a brand is gonna be the packaging and getting all the different pieces and parts together and to work together. That's gonna take you at least a year. So when we have that first conversation, I say, I know you're thinking about what you want it to smell like. Start thinking about what you want it to look like and how you want it to put out there.
You know, obviously private equity, venture capital, not the way you're going to recommend people go. But what advice would you give to emerging fragrance creators, collectors, store owners who want to challenge or at least do their own thing aside from the Goliath of the industry?
So somebody who wants to create their own line, or somebody who wants to, because there's many different people you mentioned in that. So if you're just talking about somebody who wants to create a fragrance line, Sure. Figure out why you want to do it. Is this something that you want to make? If this is a moneymaker for you, forget about it. This is like, it's not. It's probably not going to happen. I'm a half full kind of guy, but the amount of the energy of activation to get it going is so great that it may not be worth it for you. And if that's your only focus is money, you should go. There's many different, better, easier ways to make money. Sorry about that. Than to do it through fragrance, because that's a long haul. And if you're a content creator and you want to create something, just think, think about why you're doing it. If you're doing it because you love it, then go for it. Be realistic about your goals. If you're selling 200 or 400 bottles of your first launch in the year, you're crushing it. And then what was it? Third person? There was content
And
creators.
then like a perfume store.
Perfume store. I don't know much about perfume stores. I know that a lot of them are really great. I know that Stell's doing great things. I know that Ministry of Scent does great things. There's one in Georgia too that she's doing great
Indie
things.
House. Yep.
Indie House, thank you. She's a very cool lady. I've only seen her in videos. Don't know her personally, but she seems like she's doing something really cool there. You know what? Look for independent brands. All those stores they do, obviously, but I think if you're a fragrance, you want to create fragrance, look at independent brands, truly independent brands, brands that when you go online and you look at their website, if you cannot find a person attached to this thing, don't even bother.
Yep.
Don't even bother. If you're an enthusiast, a real enthusiast of artisanal perfumes, there's no artist on the website. Don't go down that road.
Yeah.
And sometimes, some creators like to be not in the forefront. We just talked about somebody earlier who doesn't want to be in the forefront, but people know who he is, and he has an incredible brand because he does interesting things because he hires independent perfumers. And that's how he started out, was independent perfumers.
Right. So looking back towards your brand more specifically, how do you feel like your queer experience is represented in your perfume? And how do you feel like that aspect is going to become more prevalent as other niche and indie brands show up?
More meaning, how is my voice as a queer perfumer going to be more prevalent as other niche and indie people come around? Ooh, this goes back to the I don't give a shit part of the equation. I don't care what other people are doing. I love that other people are doing things. I'm excited about that. But I'm of an age and have lived a number of years that I have experiences behind me that other people, especially other people who look like I do not have. And that's the only thing I've got going for me really is that voice. So it's not anything that particularly I'm doing intentionally. It's just by being who I am with the history that I have and the experiences that I've lived as a queer person, there's a place at the table for me and in the community. I think that's what I bring to it. That's enough. Just holding space and declaring that you are this minority is enough to create visibility. Because I know as a kid, if I had people that were openly gay, queer, my life would have been different. So I think it's just representation. I hate to say that, but representation matters. That's what I think that that OSM brings to the table. And then I want to be liked by everybody. There is a song, I'm a big Broadway kind of person, shocker. But there's a song in a musical called Title of Show. And the line is, I'd rather be 9 people's favorite thing than 100 people's 9th favorite thing. And that's kind of stuck with me for many years, that's the trajectory that my brand is on, OSM. This is what I think is good. This is what I feel moves me. And if it moves you, great. And you love it, I want to sell to you. If you're just kind of like, oh yeah, it's fine. Yeah. There's lots of just fine out there. Go find your favorite things. And I don't have to be one of them.
I believe it was a Greek philosopher that said there could be 100 people in a room. Or maybe that was just Lady Gaga.
That's a good one.
Can you tell
You're
me?
funny.
Can you tell me some of the stories behind your fragrances?
Sure. So we touched on a little bit of it earlier. The one that we were nominated for an Art and Olfaction Award was, at the time it was called 15 or Foreverness. Now it's just called Foreverness. It is the story of my wedding day. We got married in Los Angeles, in the east part of Los Angeles, in our backyard. It had just rained that morning, so the ground was a little bit moist, and there was a kind of a soil scent in the air. My husband that I married, the man that I married, he is this kind of this rose, this little bit candied rose that's in it, and effusive. So that's in there. My father married us, so that's the, he's a very kind of grounding person in my life. So I needed to have this very grounding backbone of patchouli in it. So that's the story of that particular day. We touched on Zuzel and Saturn's Return, which was
my favorite perfume name, by the way.
Oh,
it's so cool.
Thank you. I thought so.
I'm one of the people that I also love like the emo songs that have like a whole sentence as the song name. So Zuzel and Saturn's Return is just an awesome name.
I have lists of just perfumes that I want to make just based on just words that I like strung together.
Same.
Yeah, and in Zuzel and Saturn's Return, it was a number first when I first launched it, which was so 2004, and I was behind because I released them in like 2019. Behind on that trend. But Zuzel and Saturn's Return, the story of two friends moving across country, I mentioned earlier, and we lived in Los Angeles during our Saturn return. There was like just the smells of it. And the scent is absolutely a love letter to that person. She is one of the most important people in my life. So that is something that I wanted to give to her and put it on record so that our kids knew that this happened. That's who that was for. And it just happened, it was like, we enjoyed it, and I was like, we should put it in the line. That's a really important one to me. Some other than the newer ones, like Disco Nap and Au L'Amour. Disco Nap, we talked about, was just something that I wanted to make for myself that made me feel like hanging out with Linda Evangelista and George Michael, who I miss desperately. Au L'Amour was less of a story and more of just a concept of this universal idea of love that we all have. There's loss, there's joy, there's some sadness. So in that, and there's happiness too, and there's jubilation in it, and there's butterflies in it. So I wanted this perfume to feel like it dances on air, like you feel like when you're first falling in love, but then also there's an underbelly of a little bit of sadness sometimes as love it goes on further, or you've lost loves, or love ends, that there's a sadness too, and that they're playing against each other in Au L'Amour.
What about Tar Heels and Tonic?
Tar Heels and Tonic. That was just a fun time. That was just, the story of it is after college, I stayed in my college town for a while and ended up buying a house with a friend. And it was on this street and it had two enormous magnolia trees up front. And we used to just spend a lot of time hanging out, drinking gin and tonics, sitting on this huge front porch underneath his magnolia trees. And I just wanted to capture that time. So it's just a wink and a nod to like old friends. And it's just a piece of my past that I want to remember.
Interesting. That's the one that resonated most with me personally. Something about the atmosphere of it definitely reminds me of like late nights with friends and times that can't be recreated. I thought it was an interesting nostalgic scent.
Yeah, thanks. It is. I feel like I'm glad you enjoyed it. It is nostalgic, I think. So in the way it's built too, I think has a little bit of nostalgia in it. I'm thinking back to that porch now.
So,
Zenzi used to live there too, my friend, in Zuzel.
So you have OSM. You also consult and work with brands to help them enter the market. What do you hope to achieve in the future in terms of niche perfumery? Do you have like a, when I do this, I'll be done, or just when it happens?
No, I don't think there's a when I do this, I'll be done. I have learned that there is no, is it the right analogy? There's no final boss. There's always going to be another challenge, another something that I want to do. And I've lost that idea of, oh, once I do this, then I'm done. No. There's other things that I want to do. I'm trying to open a space, maybe here in Nashville, depending, that has some small retail in the front so people can come in and experience, talk about scent, hang out. More of a studio salon. We'll have some retail, and in the back we will manufacture and develop fragrance. I'm also working to try to open something in Europe, in the mainland, to facilitate exchange of independent perfumes, because it's hard to get perfumes back and forth. So that's a goal that I can say about that. That's probably happening in the next couple of years. And then down the road, I mean, things will just pop up and I'll see them and I'm like, oh, that's something that I want to kind of follow down that road. And that's the cool thing about like having your own businesses. You can follow those things down the road and follow those interests.
Excellent. And is there any upcoming releases either for OSM or some of the brands you're working with that you want to talk about?
Sure. Blackcliff just did 3 releases. One from Sarah McCartney. She did one called Conclusion. I did 2 of them called La Balade d'Homme, and another one I'm really excited about, Vanilla Siren, which is a vanilla scent, which
it's doing very well right now.
It's doing very well right now. But it doesn't smell like other vanilla scents, I think. It's got a twist in it of some caraway seeds. So to me, it feels more like bready, warm twist on vanilla. Doing something new with another performer that I'm very excited about. And this performer has just sent me the first kind of couple ideas of what they want the bottle to look like, which is exciting. And I really like this scent a lot. So that's coming out. That'll be out probably the end of the summer.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's some other stuff that's in the works with some new brands that are people who have never been in the perfume world that I'm really excited to work with. And I think they've got some interesting stories to tell.
Excellent. So yeah. A lot of things coming out.
A lot of things coming out.
For people who...
relatively. I can only produce, so much in a year.
Right. Fair. And it's at least a year.
Yeah, it's at least a year. But there's a backlog. There's if I can get 12 out a year, I feel like that's a big accomplishment.
12 a year. That's, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Kyle.
Thank you.
For people who want to keep track of all of these releases, where can they find you online?
Online, I am at on all of the things at OSM _perfume.
There we go.
Or you could find it if you type in blend artisanal fragrances, that will produce results. Maybe not the results you want, but it will be more, development type things.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Goth Fragrance Dialogues. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of fragrance and the incredible stories behind the scents that we explore. As always, if you want to learn more, be sure to check out the links in the description for more details and ways to connect with our guests. And don't forget to support their work. It's all about celebrating creativity and passion. If you're loving this content, regardless of what platform, please subscribe, that way you never miss out on a new episode. We've got more exciting stories, insights, and interviews coming your way. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Josh, your Goth Fragrance Bestie. Keep exploring the world of scent, stay inspired, and we'll catch you next episode.